Welcome to another episode of Phin-Addict Fury with your host, Larry K. It's great to be back with you, even though it's not too great to be a Dolphins fan right now. I appreciate all the support I've gotten on the last little video I did, even though it wasn't in the actual studio with the actual microphone and the quality audio and the quality lighting and God knows what else, and not even a Dolphins logo on my shirt. I did get a lot of support on that video, got a lot of new subscribers, so welcome to all the new subscribers on Phin-Addict Fury. I'm your host, Larry K. I do a lot of other podcasts. I do current events podcasts called the Logic and Larry podcast, which is actually available on all different mediums. I write for On the Banks, which is a college sports medium, specifically dealing with Rutgers football. I'm a lifelong Dolphins fan, and I'm happy to be with you, even though, for the last 20 years or so, it's been really tough. In the late 80s, early 90s, when I became a fan as a young kid, it was a lot more fun, and now we're struggling. But, yesterday's video was kind of just going off about the state of the team, state of the franchise. And I think, one of the things that is kind of, people discuss it, but kind of on the fringe. No one's necessarily delved into it with their opinion. I kind of have an opinion on, just essentially what happened, right? We started this rebuild by tearing everything down. Ross said, he'd been doing it wrong for a while, and the best way to build a football team, he was convinced now, was to hire a GM. Let the GM go out and hire their coach. Let the GM basically be in charge of everything football related. He was now convinced, which shows he hadn't been doing it, for the first several years he was the owner, was to let the football people handle the football stuff and have one person that everybody reports to handle that in a typical old school chain of command. So he appointed Chris Grier as that individual. Chris went out and hired Brian Flores. They then purged the entire roster of virtually all the talent, all the veterans, all the salaries, all the contracts, everything. He traded piece after piece to attain all these draft picks. And they said that we just needed to instill a new culture, build from the ground up, and this regime would build a winner. And early on, they were debating whether it was ethical to do what we were doing. There was a lot of talk we were tanking for Tua, and that we were purposely trying to lose to get higher draft picks, that it was virtually unethical. But what happened was, midway through the first year, the team kind of hit a switch. They appeared to do really well and finish really strong, and there was a lot of encouragement in Miami. We had 3 first-round picks that first year. We went out. We got the quarterback everybody said they wanted in Tua. And we got Austin Jackson, Noah Igbenogany, and we then, went and drafted some more people in the other rounds. We embarked on the second season, and it was kind of odd, wasn't it, at first, because we kind of saw an offense that year. Now, look, statistically, some people said I'm wrong on this, but I don't know. I remember that for the first time in a long time, that first year, the offense seemed to finally be using, those big wideouts and getting down the middle of the field a little more and doing things we hadn't seen under Adam Gase. But right after the season, Brian Flores fires his offensive coordinator, and he hires Chan Gailey. And that's curious because we always assumed, didn't we, that Ryan Fitzpatrick was a stopgap quarterback, right? Ryan Fitzpatrick was not going to be the long-term guy. And all the rumors were the reason he brought in Chan Gailey at OC was because Chan Gailey had a familiarity with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he ran an offense that Ryan Fitzpatrick would be good in. Already you got to kind of pause, but none of us really paused too much because we're like, okay, well, we want to win. We trust Flores. We trust this regime. Let's see what they do. But it was kind of curious, wasn't it? He wasn't the future, so why were we bringing in an older offensive coordinator to work with an older quarterback when we were supposedly drafting the guy of the future? So then we have last season. And last season, we're playing pretty good. The defense is good. For the first time in years, we have an offensive line that looks functional, right? Not amazing, but an offensive line that's not piss poor. An offensive line that actually can do something for the first time in years. Fitzpatrick does well. Tua comes in at a certain point. He throws a nice pass in the end zone. I forget which game it was. And after that, we're like, okay, Tua's the starter. I think we had a bye week. Tua comes in. He has an awesome game against Arizona where him and Kyler Murray kind of go back and forth. And it looks like the future. And then Tua starts to really struggle, and the offense starts to really struggle. And you hear later that the offense, surprise, surprise, was catered more towards Ryan Fitzpatrick. Tua was having trouble learning it, and it didn't necessarily fit all Tua's strengths. Well, what did we expect bringing in Chan Gailey? Now, the interesting thing that happened between year 1 and year 2, and this is the point of the video, right, to discuss how did we go from promising 10-6, right on the cusp of the playoffs, looking up, the rebuild is in progress, to pretty much bottom of the barrel, terrible decisions, everybody's questioning the front. How did that happen? Well, I understand the first time Flores comes in with Grier, it's not your roster, it's not your players, it's not your vision, it's not the program, if you will, that you built. So you purge even good players. You purge guys that are even pieces from the previous regimes because you want to build something brand new. It's like you bought a waterfront property and you don't want to keep the house at all. You just like the property, the Dolphins logo, that's it. You want to rip the old house down. You want to build up an entire new structure, your dream house on the property. So I get getting rid of all the veterans the first year. So what do they do the second year? Not only the second year do they draft a bunch of guys, but they also bring in veterans, right? They're bringing in a veteran coach in Chan Gailey to run the offense. They have a veteran quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick. Flores, and this is where you got to think, Flores has some serious influence, right? Because, and I'll get more to this in a minute because it's involved and not a lot of people are talking about it, but there's a lot of buzz out there that, oh, Flores is pretty good, he's a good coach, but it's all on Grier. Because Grier's the one who makes the draft picks, and Grier's the one who brings in the players, and Grier's the one who makes personnel decisions. But here's the thing. I'm not disagreeing that Grier has failed with his draft picks miserably. I'm not. But Flores has certainly an influence on who we bring in, because look at the players we brought in. There are so many expatriates on this roster and so many people that Flores had worked with in the past. There's no way that it's just Grier sitting there making these decisions unilaterally. Flores had to have had an influence on this. So the first year they go out, they get Ted Karras, they get Flowers for the offensive line. That's a big reason why that offensive line was vastly improved. They bring in rookies, Solomon Kinley, Hunt, Jackson, and they stick with people like Jesse Davis, another veteran, and the line is vastly improved. On defense, they have Bobby McCann, who's been there a while. Bobby McCann, people complained about him for a long time, but he was a captain. In the interviews, I've talked about him before. In the interviews, you could tell he knows schematically what's going on with the defense. You could tell from a personnel leadership standpoint, he knows what's going on with his team. He flew all over the field, made a lot of big plays at a lot of key spots, even though you don't love him all the time in coverage. You bring in Kyle Van Noy, another New England guy, who's a leader on the defense, and, he's in coverage a lot, he's making plays, and sometimes his understudy, Van Ginkel, comes in and just lights the world on fire. But maybe part of the reason Van Ginkel's lighting the world on fire is because Van Noy's leading him, tutoring him, and because he has Van Noy to fall back in, so he's not starting constantly and dealing with the headache of a starter. He's kind of coming in to provide a spark, and he's doing that. You got guys like Shaq Lawson on the line, providing, again, veteran leadership, veteran knowledge, and almost every part of the defense, you have this veteran presence in the secondary, in the linebacking core, and on the defensive line. And on the offensive line, you have that. Then you invest in somebody like Devontae Parker, who's been here a long time, but then you also, let these young kids, Preston Williams, come up, people like that, and you start to develop them. And you see a team that's successful, but then you have almost this veteran/young guy team molding in the beginning of last season. And then you throw a wrench into it when you start Tua. Now, I'm not against starting Tua, but if you were going to start him, why didn't you mold the team younger and with a younger, innovative offensive coordinator cater to Tua's strengths earlier. But anyway, you kind of derail it, and even though you derail it, it's you end the season 10-6. But we had some warning flags, didn't we? With coaching specifically. Let's not get to personnel yet. Coaching specifically, we had some warning flags, right? Didn't we? Because we got crushed by Buffalo twice that year, and the last game we got absolutely dismantled. We had a quarterback who was used to getting pulled if the heat got too hot for the veteran guy that the team counts on to come in if we need him because he came in against Las Vegas, but he's unavailable because he's injured. So the team's kind of lost without him. They have no fallback option. We get exploited on offense and defense by Buffalo, and the playoffs were on the line. And for a coach to have already played them once, usually when you have division rivalries, the first game, one team might get the better of the other and destroy them. But usually the second time, it's not that lopsided. Even if the same team wins, the other team's more prepared because it's a division rival. They've played them. They've seen them. They know how to counteract some of the stuff they did to them before. And that's how the NFL is, right? You're going to keep doing what works until it doesn't work anymore. So the team that destroyed the other team is probably going to do the same thing they did last time. The other team, it's up to them to use those schemes and just out-scheme them for the next time. So they got to adjust, and you adjust, and you adjust. It's how the league works. But he didn't adjust. Flores got exposed in that game for the playoffs. So it was a warning sign. But we're all like, okay, look, it's time to move on. Chan Gailey's going to probably be on his way out because Fitzpatrick's not there anymore. He's going to have to bring in an OC who's more innovative, who's going to work with Tua's talents and abilities. We have these young draft picks. They're going to step up. We have a bunch more draft picks in this upcoming draft. We can figure it out. But what happens, right? What does Flores do? And again, this is why I'm saying Grier has a lot of blame, and he also hired Flores, so that's his problem too. But Flores is the one who hires this dual OC thing from inside. And then what does he do? Him and Grier get rid of and exile all of the veteran players that they had just brought in. The anchors of the 10-6 team. So I get dismantling it to the studs and building it back up. But when you build it back up, you build it with young draft picks and veterans that are more fitting, fit the culture you want to provide. You keep those veterans in place for a few years so they can continue to cultivate the culture that you want. So they can continue to build the culture that you want with the younger guys, especially through adversity, through thick and thin. But they brought them in 1 year, Karras, Flowers, Lawson, Van Noy. And then the next year, they're out. And all of a sudden, Flores thinks, well, I can bring in an internal OC hire, and I can bring up these young guys just to fill the role of all these key veterans. Like, we're not talking about one or two vets. We're talking about key veterans at almost every position that matters, especially the trenches, the linebackers, and the offense and defensive line. You get rid of key players, veteran leadership and ability to do your job in all the major areas of your football team. And then you go miraculously from 10-6 to bottom feeder. It seems crazy, but it's not. When you really think about why we did that, it's because we got rid of the foundation we had brought in. The foundation that made us 10-6, he got rid of at every key portion of the football team. So of course the football team regressed. Here's my little thing about that with Flores. I think it's hubris, right? I think he comes from this New England system where, you remember as a Dolphins fan, you'd always be angry, and I know a lot of Jets fans too. They'd always be angry at the Patriots because as soon as one of their stars went down, some guy came in, and my buddy would get so angry, Anthony, would always be like, oh, every time he goes down, there's going to be another little mini one. Like Welker got hurt, there's going to be another little mini Welker who comes in. There's always some other guy you never heard of with a totally different name You don't know anything about him, but he does exactly the same job the guy before him did, and he does it well, and he looks like him. Sometimes they even have similar names to him and similar everything to him. And that was the Patriot way. He comes from that system, and I got to say, now that Tom Brady has left the Patriots and gone to Tampa, the Patriots aren't doing so great. So maybe the Patriot way was really BS the whole time anyway. Now, I wonder all these New England coaches go elsewhere and they don't do well. Because maybe the Patriot way is nothing. Maybe just Tom Brady is a great presence in the locker room and a really damn good quarterback who just wins. And Belichick's pretty smart as a defensive coach. And they both kind of kept that culture together that no matter who they plugged in, Brady made him a good player. To the point that the Patriot way is BS. So maybe Flores has a lot of hubris, and he thinks, well, it's like the Patriots. I can get rid of the older guys, especially if they start knocking heads with me. I can bring up any young guy I want to fill that role. I mean, you got Van Noy, Van Ginkel. Reminds me of the Patriots. Steps in, he's supposed to do the same thing. He's not. I can get rid of big-name coaches and just create the next OC that I'm going to ship out to some other unsuspecting team. Like Brian Flores himself was created by Belichick. I'm going to just bring up one of the quality control guys to secondary and then to D coordinator and then make him a head coach out of nowhere because he came up through the Patriots. I created him internally. I think he's buying full sail into that philosophy, Flores, and it's not working at the Dolphins because there's other factors that existed with the Patriots for 20 years that don't exist with the Dolphins. And you see with Tua's trainer, and now here's the thing, I don't think Tua's the one who told his trainer about Flores not being a guy you could talk to. I don't think Tua's the one who did that. I don't. But this trainer apparently trains a bunch of guys, some other Dolphins. I bet another guy told him. And the trainer has a close enough relationship with Tua that if he thought Tua didn't share the sentiments or wouldn't, be worried about it, I don't think the trainer would have tweeted that Flores was hard to approach, hard to talk to, and there was trouble in Miami. I think Tua shares the sentiments, and the trainer had no problem tweeting it. Because I think Flores has some serious deficiencies as a head coach, and I think we're starting to see that come to a head now. The other thing I want to just think about this. Just think about this. Are we sure that all of our draft picks are terrible players? Are we positive that every one of these young kids, Van Ginkel, all the offensive linemen, and by the way, I don't understand that the configuration of the offensive line. Kinley was trucking people last year a little bit. He's overweight. I get it. He was trucking people when we had the other guys there and he was on the interior. You sit him, but you keep Jackson out there, who's good for at least 2 penalties a game. Still not doing great on the inside. Better than he was on the outside. But what gives with that? But these young players, even Phillips is doing okay. He's not looking like Russo with Buffalo. But think about this. It looks like all these other teams, we could say all these other teams drafted guys in the first and second and third round, and they're all doing so much better than our guys from the first and second and third round. We must have made the wrong picks. That's what you think at first, right? Your first reaction is we must have made the wrong picks. But what if our coaching and our schematic and organizational theories and our schematic and organizational philosophies and our coaching are just really bad? And so it's not necessarily that the guys we picked suck compared to everybody else's guys, but it's that the other guys are getting coached on different teams better. Maybe it's not that we got all the bad players and everybody else got the good players. Maybe it's that we can't coach the guys we pick. Maybe the coaching's the common denominator and not that we pick all the wrong guys. It's probably a combination of the two. But it's a real problem, and you got to think with all the other bad decisions Flores has made, and then the tweet coming out, and then, and then you got a guy like Tua, right? And I've never been, right? I've told you guys on so many videos over and over again that I think Tua has very real limitations that make it difficult for me to be confident and say, look, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. He's a franchise generational player we thought he was. I've been saying it. However, now, Omar Kelly, you could think what you think about him. I mean, but he seems usually brutally honest a lot of times, at least, even if a lot of times seems disparaging. He says Tua is going to be a top 10 quarterback. Now, Do we trust everything he says? No. But for him to say that, somebody who's really kind of doubted Tannehill, doubted a lot of the guys, means something. But forget what he said. Tua, against Arizona last year, he looked like the he looked like the second coming. He looked good. Tua yesterday, I've been thinking more about it. Yesterday I said he wasn't a savior. He's not a savior, right? Not yet, anyway. He's not a savior. And remember, he had 3 of his top receivers out yesterday. 3. And the game plans have been terrible. Again, yesterday, this is just more coaching. I don't want to get too much on a tangent because I want to talk about Tua. But, again, Gaskin is barely playing again. What are they doing? Gaskin killed it the week before. Why isn't he playing all the time again? Especially as a security blanket for Tua. What are you doing? Gesicki did play, and Gesicki, what happened when Gesicki started playing and getting snaps? He's getting tons of yards. He's all over the field. You see that Tua has good chemistry with Waddle because that's a player that fits his way of playing. It's a guy he's familiar with. He had good chemistry with him. It's Waddle's best day. But back to Tua. He had the one bone. He had 2 bonehead plays, right? But he's still young. He's only third game this year of his second season, and he didn't have a full season last year. A guy like me who hasn't been his biggest fan, who's still not positive about him, I gotta say, aside from the one interception that was a bad choice, and aside from the throw he made when he should have ran for the first down, I think he thought he could get a bigger play. And he admitted it after, just straight up, that was just a bad throw. Aside from those 2 plays yesterday, Tua looked good. Tua looked good, man. He was moving around the pocket well. There were remember a couple weeks ago? I got to eat some crow. I said when Jacoby Brissett was falling down and he still made the throw, Tua would never do that. Hey, Tua did it on the first or second drive of the game yesterday. He was getting hit, thrown down, and made that delivery. And he made it strong and accurate. And it was nice. He had a good stat line. He played good. His pocket presence was good. His reads were good. His throws were good, except for those 2. But those were more mental misreads, I think, than actual physical limitations. His running decisions were mostly good, and he didn't have 3 of his top receivers. Now, again, I'm not a Brissett head here. He came in with the one play. Brissett had a really nice ball. He's a good backup. People can hate on him all they want. But I think it's clear that Tua was playing pretty good. At least yesterday. Now, only reason I even care about watching next week or the rest of the season is just to see if Tua's that good. Because remember I said a couple weeks ago, we don't have any pieces. Well, if Tua turns out to be good and a top 10 quarterback, if he keeps playing like he did yesterday without the dumb mistakes and maybe another touchdown or 2, that's a piece. That's a piece that we can use no matter where we go after this. That's something to look forward to. But again, just my overall analysis on this video was just to say, how'd we get here? What happened? And I think what happened is Brian Flores and Chris Grier have this hubris where they got cocky about going 10-6, and they didn't give any credit to the veteran coaches and the veteran players on the roster that helped them get to 10-6. And in their hubris, they decided we're going to get rid of all those guys. We're going to save a bunch of money. And we're so cocky, we're going to trade away our first-round pick instead of San Francisco's because we're going to be so good that we're not going to need our own first-round pick. That's going to bite them in the ass. And we're going to get rid of all these guys. We're such good coaches and GMs that we are so smart. We're too smart for everybody that we don't need any of these veterans. We're so good that we can coach up the young guys and they can fill the veteran shoes easy. And we're so good that we could save all this contract money and just feed it into the secondary. Bobby McCann, he's not really my guy. I'm going to go get Jason McCourty. I have nothing against Jason McCourty. I'm a huge fan of the McCourty brothers. I love Jason McCourty. But Bobby McCann was the veteran who's been on that team for years. I think Flores said, well, he's not one of my guys. He's not one of my guys. I want him out. I want McCourty in because I can do, one of my guys is superior to somebody who's been here a long time. I don't want a leader that's got his own philosophies like McCann. I want McCourty, who's one of my guys, to be the leader. And I'm going to pay a ton of money to X and Jones, sink all the money in there because I'm so smart schematically that if I get my cover corners, I can get pressure on the quarterback with my schemes in the line. All of those things were wrong. I don't need to hire a veteran offensive coordinator who's going to handle the offense properly. I'll hire my guys because I know what's best. They'll handle Tua, and we'll do some weird structure for play calling. We'll do it that way. And I don't need to keep any veteran offensive linemen because these young guys are going to be coached up great because Grier is such a genius with picks and I'm such a great coach and I make such great coaching hires on the offense that will be great. I think it's all hubris. I think 10-6 got to their head. I think they're full of themselves and they declared that the house had been built when they forgot to properly maintain load-bearing pillars in the house, and it fell out from under them as soon as the tide came up, as soon as the wind blew. That's what I think. And they need to be taken to task for it. Now, there's a bunch of season left. We're not going to make the playoffs. We're not going to set the world on fire. But there's a lot of football left. They need to show, A, that they're willing to adjust and not be stubborn in terms of schemes and personnel. B, that their quarterback is the quarterback of the future. Tua still has a chance to prove that. He played well yesterday. And C, that they're going to make a ton of different moves in this offseason to bring in veteran leadership and to unload some of these mistakes they made in the draft. They might as well trade away some picks and bring in other guys. But here's the thing, guys. I'm not convinced that that's the case, right? I think the best thing we can hope for as Dolphins fans is either A, Tua is the answer, or B, we trade to get the answer at quarterback, and then we clean house. Because I think Grier is questionable at best with his picks. And then his pick for head coach, I think Flores has a ton of potential. I think Flores can be a great coach. I think Flores has a lot of qualities that you want in a good coach, but I don't think he quite is a great coach yet. And unfortunately, I think Miami might have to be a learning experience for him. He might have to get fired from Miami, let go from Miami to understand how he failed in Miami. Because as a first-time head coach, I think Brian Flores is making a lot of missteps. I think one of the biggest missteps is thinking he can get rid of all the veteran leadership. And I remember, and if you can go back, you guys can go back to one of my older videos. The video, maybe third video on this channel or second video, where I break down the offensive coordinator hire. And I say, as much as I kind of am encouraged by Flores so far, I say, but what if he's got too much pride and he doesn't like anybody who's a threat to him to be around him? And that's why he hired guys who were no names for offense coordinator. I asked, what if that's the case? And unfortunately, it's turning out to starting to look like that is the case. Because even, remember Philbin too, when they had the leadership council, and then Philbin got rid of almost all those guys because he was threatened. And you know why Philbin was. You could tell he was like a fragile guy outwardly. Flores, I think, appears to be more in control of himself, more secure. But if you're hearing rumblings that he's hard to talk to, just like Philbin was, and you're hearing rumblings that they don't really get along with him, and then you see him purge veteran coaches and veteran players, do you start to wonder that there were some vocal leaders on that team who maybe were knocking heads with Flores, and instead of sitting down with them or trying to talk to them or trying to find common ground or trying to, work with and motivate his best talent, he just purged them and said, it's my way or the highway? Is it possible? I say it's looking more and more and more likely that that's what happened. And not only when you purge your roster of veterans do you go from 10-6 to bottom dweller in 1 year, but your team, who's already kind of at wit's end with you personality-wise, already kind of doesn't love you, now that you're losing, and now that they know the moves you've made. Last year, you pretty much gave up the playoffs by starting a rookie when you had a veteran playing one of the best seasons of his career. After bringing in an offensive coordinator which worked with the veteran better and sticking the rookie with an offensive coordinator who didn't work with him well and didn't fit his strengths, you pretty much you screwed Tua over by putting Tua into a situation last year that was going to make him look bad, was going to put him up against Fitzpatrick, was going to put him in a position where he was getting pulled for Fitzpatrick, which made everybody around the league, every commentator, player, whatever, start to doubt Tua in general. You screwed your team by knocking him out of the playoffs by putting Tua in that situation. And you created a locker room divide when you did that with the quarterbacks, and they can say all they want that there was no locker room divide. That's nonsense. There definitely was a locker room divide. You can't not have one when you're going back and forth with quarterbacks like that, and you're winning with one of them, who's everybody's friend, and he's a guy's guy, one of the veterans on the team. Then the next year you come back, you make the wrong OC hire, you purge the team of all these veteran leaders, and now you're losing, and now you're getting out coached by Urban Meyer on the last fourth down play. the team's going to start to just tune you out. And I think at this point, I think they are tuning Flores out. So that's my analysis, guys. I think it's Flores' hubris. His hubris. And the way he's approached the roster and the team that caused us to go from 10-6 to bottom dweller. I think that's what it is. For a deeper dive into it, I think that's what it is. But let's hope Tua continues to play well, and let's see where this thing goes. I think Flores and Grier are done. But we know our owner. If we show any sign of life, I wonder if he's going to keep them another year or not. And if he does, I don't know what we do. I don't know. Yeah, and you don't want to keep him so long that Tua gets stale, even though he has potential. Like what happened with the Jets. They come in, they trade Darnold. Darnold had another rough outing. But he's playing better on another team. Like, you don't want somebody to come in and just say, well, just because I'm new, I want my quarterback, even if Tua still has potential. And then we miss out on a whole bunch of stuff. But it still remains to be seen whether Tua is still the guy. I mean, he's had 2 good games pretty much in his career in the NFL. Let's see if he could put some more together. Everything else has been lackluster. But you can't deny that there were 2 good games, and the last one was good. Let's see where we go from here. It was the Jaguars, but again, he was without 3 top receivers. So we'll see what happens. Guys, if you enjoy the content, if you enjoy any of the videos, please, please, please smash that subscribe button. Please like the video. Please comment. Reach out to me. Anything of that nature. I'm looking forward to talking to you more and more and more with these videos. I'm going to get myself one of those nice logos at the beginning of the videos. I'll get there. Until next time, until next week, fins up. I'll talk to you soon. The owner was going to step out.